My husband only spoke to me when he needed something. One night, as I sat alone at a party, a man said, "You look lonely." I laughed, "I'm married." He smirked, "That doesn't mean you're not lonely." I thought about my husband, home in his office, not even wondering where I was. That night, I let myself be seen again, by someone who actually wanted to look. I, 42 female, live in Chicago and have been married to my husband, 46 male, Mark, for 18 years. We met in college. I was an English major, he studied finance. We were one of those couples everyone thought would last forever. We had the apartment, the dog, the careers, even the matching coffee mugs. And for a while, things were good. Not perfect, but good enough. But somewhere along the line, the marriage stopped feeling like a marriage. Mark started working longer hours. At first, I understood. His job in finance was demanding, and promotions don't come easy. But then even when he was home, he was still at work. Locked in his office, phone glued to his hand, laptop always open. I'd make dinner, and he'd eat it in silence or not at all. I'd ask how his day went, and he'd say fine without even looking up. We barely spoke unless he needed something, a shirt ironed, a bill paid, an appointment booked. I started feeling like a personal assistant in my own home. I brought it up more than once. Told him I felt ignored. He'd just say, "You're overthinking." That was his go-to response for everything. I was always overthinking or too sensitive. I stopped trying after a while. I'd talk, he'd grunt. I'd suggest date nights, and he'd say he was tired. I felt like a ghost in my own marriage. Still there, still breathing, but completely invisible. Then one weekend, my friend Leah invited me to an art gallery opening in Pilsen. I almost said no. I hadn't been out in months, and Mark hadn't asked me a single question about what I was doing. Not even, "What time will you be home?" He didn't care. So I went. It was a small, cozy gallery with live jazz, dim lights, and walls filled with paintings from local artists. Everyone there seemed paired up, laughing, drinking wine, enjoying the vibe. I stood by myself near a painting of a skyline, sipping cheap rose and pretending to care about brush strokes. That's when I heard a man's voice beside me. "You look lonely." I laughed, more out of surprise than anything. "I'm married," I said quickly, almost like a reflex. He smiled, not in a creepy way, just, knowing. "That doesn't mean you're not lonely." That sentence hit me like a punch to the gut. We started talking. His name was Daniel, 45, an architect recently back in Chicago after living overseas for a while. He was tall, dressed casually, wore glasses, and had the kind of calm voice that made you want to keep listening. We talked about art, travel, favorite bookstores, and growing up in the city. It was the first real conversation I'd had in months. He didn't ask anything too personal, but he didn't need to. He just listened. And I realized how much I missed being heard. When the gallery started to close, he asked if I wanted to grab a coffee. I hesitated. I was married, after all. But the truth? The idea of going home to silence again made me feel sick. So I said yes. I showed up at Daniel's place unannounced. I didn't plan to. I just drove there. He let me in, sat me down, and listened. No judgment, no pressure. Just calm understanding. Then he brushed a piece of hair from my face, and I let him. We kissed. It was soft. Slow. And I pulled away immediately after. Told him I couldn't do this. That I was married. He apologized. Said he didn't want to mess up my life. I left, heart racing, guilt already settling in my bones. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, Mark didn't even notice something was wrong. Didn't ask why I hadn't eaten or slept. Just told me to remind him about a meeting on Friday. That's when I knew. This wasn't a marriage anymore. It hadn't been for a long time. After that night, things with Daniel didn't end. I wish I could say they did. I wish I could say I never saw him again. But I did. More than once. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinners turned into nights. With him, I laughed again. With him, I remembered who I used to be before I became invisible. He asked me once, "What would you do if your husband found out?" And I didn't have an answer. Because I wasn't scared of Mark finding out. I was scared of admitting to myself that I had already checked out of my marriage long before Daniel showed up. And honestly, I think Mark knew. Or maybe he didn't care. He stopped asking where I was going. He stopped checking in. For all he knew, I could have been anywhere, and I was. The worst part? I started wishing he would find out. Not because I wanted to hurt him. But because I wanted a reason to end it. I didn't want to be the one to break it first. But now I'm at a point where I don't know what to do. I haven't told Daniel I love him. I haven't told Mark I've been seeing someone else. I'm living in this limbo of guilt, sadness, and clarity. This isn't about choosing between two men. It's about realizing I've been gone from my own life for years. And now I have to figure out what comes next. It had been almost 4 months since the first night Daniel and I crossed that line. I was living 2 lives. I'd go to work, come home, make dinner, do laundry, pretend to be the wife I was supposed to be. Then once or twice a week, I'd escape to Daniel's apartment. And for those few hours I didn't feel like I was drowning. I was careful. Always careful. New perfume. Different clothes. I'd keep my phone on silent, delete messages, never save his name. It was risky, I know. But when you've been ignored for as long as I was, attention feels like oxygen. And I had been suffocating for years. Mark still didn't notice anything. Or he pretended not to. Same routine. Same cold stares. Same short answers. He'd leave early, come home late, eat dinner in silence, go back into his office and close the door. The walls of our house were thick with distance. Then, things started to shift. It started with Mark asking me if I wanted to go to his company's annual gala. He hadn't invited me to anything work-related in years. I was surprised, confused even, but I said yes. The night of the gala, I wore a black dress I hadn't worn in years. Mark looked at me when I walked out of the bedroom. Actually looked at me. He said, "You look nice." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was too late for that now. We went to the gala. It was held at this high-end hotel downtown. Everything looked expensive and perfect. There were tables with tiny food on big plates, people dressed like movie stars, and music I didn't recognize. I stood next to Mark like a statue while he introduced me to people I'd never met, called me his wife like a badge he'd forgotten he owned. That's when I saw her. She was standing across the room, tall, red dress, perfect posture. She looked about my age. She smiled at Mark. He smiled back. But it wasn't just a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile I hadn't seen on his face in years. I watched her walk over, heels clicking on the floor like clock hands counting down. When she reached us, she gave Mark a kiss on the cheek, right in front of me, and said, "You didn't tell me your wife was coming." The silence that followed was loud. Mark looked at her. Then looked at me. Then back at her. His face turned pale. She realized what she said. "I'm sorry," I thought, "never mind." She walked away. I stood there, holding my wine glass so tight I thought it might break. Mark didn't say anything. I didn't either. I waited for him to explain. He didn't. We left early. When we got home, I asked him straight up. "Who is she?" He didn't lie. He didn't even try. "Her name's Rachel," he said. "She's a project manager on one of my accounts." "For how long?" He looked away. "A year. Maybe more." I laughed. Actually laughed out loud. I couldn't help it. I'd been torturing myself with guilt about Daniel, thinking I was the one ruining everything, while Mark had his own secret life this whole time. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. But I didn't. Instead, I asked, "Do you love her?" He said, "I don't know." That broke me more than if he had just said yes. I packed a bag that night and left. I didn't even know where I was going at first, but I ended up at Daniel's place. He opened the door and saw my suitcase and the tears on my face. "I found out," I said. "Found out what?" "That my husband is just as lost as I am." Daniel didn't ask questions. He just let me stay. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, feeling both free and hollow. My marriage had been dead for a long time, but now there was a body. Now there was proof. The next morning, Mark called me. I ignored it. He texted. Just one line. "We need to talk." I didn't reply. Daniel made me coffee and didn't ask what I was going to do. I think he knew I didn't have a plan yet. Later that week, I went back to the house while Mark was at work. I needed to grab more of my stuff. That's when I found it, tucked inside the top drawer of his nightstand. A little black box. A necklace. Simple gold chain with a small diamond pendant. Not mine. I left it on the bed with a note that said, "You forgot to give her this." And I left again. But now things are messy. Daniel started acting strange. Distant. Quiet. I asked him if he was okay, and he kept saying, "Yeah, just tired." But I knew the signs. I'd lived with those signs. One night, I asked him outright, "Are you pulling away from me?" He hesitated. Then he said something I didn't expect. "I didn't sign up for this." "What do you mean?" "This, everything. You moving in. The divorce. The drama. I care about you, but I don't know if I'm ready to be someone's plan B." That shattered me. Plan B? After everything? Now I don't know what to do. I'm living in a guest room at Leah's place, trying to figure out how my whole life got this tangled. Mark keeps texting. Daniel's pulling away. And me? I'm stuck in the middle of a story I didn't see coming. This isn't about cheating anymore. It's about feeling lost. About realizing the life you built isn't the life you want. And wondering if it's too late to start over. No ending yet. Just more questions. 2 weeks after I moved into Leah's spare room, things got worse. Not the kind of fight over text worse. The kind of worse that makes you question who you've been sleeping beside all these years. Let me back up. After Daniel told me he didn't sign up for this, we stopped talking for a while. I gave him space. Maybe too much. I thought maybe he just needed time to process everything, the way I did. Divorce isn't a switch. It's a collapse. You don't walk away from 18 years of marriage and step clean into someone else's arms. At least, that's what I told myself. Meanwhile, Mark kept texting. Sometimes asking where I was. Sometimes just sending one-word messages, "Talk? Home? Please." I ignored most of them. I was still too raw. But I wasn't stupid. I knew we'd have to talk eventually, especially with lawyers starting to call. That's when I got a message I didn't expect. It was from a number I didn't know. Short, to the point. "Are you still seeing Daniel? You should know he's not who you think he is." No name. No context. Just that. I stared at the screen, heart thumping. My first thought was that it was Mark. Trying to mess with me. Trying to make Daniel look bad so I'd come crawling back. But the area code wasn't even local. It was New York. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I did something I hadn't done before. I Googled Daniel. I had never needed to before. Everything he told me seemed normal. Architect. Lived abroad. Moved back to Chicago recently. Grew up in the suburbs. All believable. But when I searched his full name and architect, only a couple of small interviews came up. Nothing recent. Then I checked social media. His Facebook was private. Instagram? Barely used. Just photos of buildings, cafes, and street art. Then I looked closer. The cafes weren't from Chicago. They were in New York, Boston, Montreal. And some of the photos were tagged with someone else. A woman. I clicked the tag. Her profile was open. Her name was Julia. She was beautiful, maybe a few years younger than me. And in one of the photos, taken just 3 months ago, she and Daniel were holding hands on a balcony. The caption said, "Finally back together after 6 long months." My stomach dropped. I clicked more. Scrolled fast. There were more posts. Some recent. Some from a year ago. Vacations. Dinners. Date night with my favorite person. Always him. Same glasses. Same smirk. Same soft eyes he used on me. I felt sick. I called him. Straight up. No games. He answered, voice groggy. "Hey." I didn't say hi. "Who's Julia?" Silence. Then a sigh. "She's someone I used to date." Used to? Or still do? Another pause. Then he said, "It's complicated." That's when I lost it. I said things I won't repeat here. I yelled. Called him every name in the book. He tried to explain, but I didn't let him. I hung up. 15 minutes later, my phone rang again. Unknown number. It was her. Julia. She was calm. Too calm. Like she had done this before. She told me they'd been together for over 3 years. That he moved to Chicago for work but they were doing long distance. That she came to visit him often. And that she always suspected he had someone else out here. She just didn't think it'd be someone like me. I sat on the floor of Leah's bathroom, crying, while Julia told me every detail of her life with Daniel. Some overlapped mine. Some didn't. But the timelines? They matched too closely. When the call ended, I stared at myself in the mirror and didn't recognize what I saw. Mark had someone else. Daniel had someone else. And me? I had no one. Just a half-empty suitcase, a temporary room, and a broken heart that didn't even know who it was grieving anymore. But that wasn't the twist. The twist came a week later. I had finally agreed to meet with Mark, in person, to talk through divorce stuff. We met at a neutral spot, an old diner near our neighborhood, the kind with peeling booths and a jukebox that never worked. He looked older than I remembered. Tired. So was I. We talked numbers, logistics, who gets what. It was awkward, civil, but emotionally flat. Like two people divvying up furniture after a house fire. Then he said something strange. He asked, "Did you ever love him?" I knew who he meant. I said, "It doesn't matter now." He nodded, then stared into his coffee. Because I did. I blinked. You what? I loved Rachel. I still do. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Then he said the part that truly shocked me. I only cheated because I thought you were already doing it. I saw a message once. From someone named D. Before anything started between me and Rachel. I convinced myself you were lying to me. So I did it too. To even the score. I just sat there, stunned. That message? The one he saw? It wasn't Daniel. It was my coworker, Diana. We were texting about her divorce. He saw one message. Jumped to a conclusion. Then made it true. So now here we are. My husband cheated because he thought I cheated. I cheated because I thought my husband stopped loving me. And the man I thought saved me from it all? He was lying to both of us. I don't know what this story is anymore. But it's not over. 2 days after the diner conversation, I invited Mark and Daniel to meet me. Yes. Both of them. In one room. I know how that sounds. Crazy. But I was done with the lies. Done pretending everything was fine or manageable. I needed the truth out. All of it. In the open. I was tired of carrying the weight of two men who had been pretending in different ways. We met in the private backroom of a quiet cafe I knew. It was the kind of place that usually hosts book clubs and retirement parties. I asked Leah to come too. I needed someone on my side. Not to defend me. Just to witness. Mark arrived first. He looked like he didn't sleep. No suit, just jeans and a windbreaker. He sat without a word. Daniel came in 5 minutes later. He paused when he saw Mark, then looked at me. You serious with this? He asked. Sit down, I said. He sat. Leah stayed quiet in the corner, arms crossed. I took a deep breath and said, You both lied to me. And I lied to both of you. Mark stared at his hands. Daniel shifted in his seat, already defensive. I turned to Daniel. Julia called me. His whole face tightened. She had no right, I cut in. You don't get to play the victim. You told me you weren't with anyone. You let me fall for you while you were holding on to her. I needed someone, and you made me believe I could trust you. Daniel opened his mouth, but I didn't let him speak. I left a marriage for someone who was already in one emotionally. You think I wanted that? Mark spoke next. Quiet, but sharp. I only cheated because I thought she already was. I turned on him. You saw a message and assumed. You didn't ask me. You just made the decision to cheat. I didn't betray you first, you made that up to justify what you were already thinking of doing. He looked stunned. And then he broke. His eyes welled up. I hadn't seen Mark cry in years, maybe ever. I was scared, he said. You were slipping away, and I didn't know how to get you back. Rachel paid attention to me. She laughed at my dumb jokes. I felt like a man again. That's not an excuse, Leah cut in from the side. It's just selfishness. Mark nodded. He didn't argue. Then Daniel stood. I can't do this. This isn't therapy. I didn't agree to be interrogated. You already were, I snapped. By your own guilt. He looked at me, softer this time. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just didn't expect to feel anything for you. Julia and we were on and off. I thought we were ending. I didn't plan for this. No one ever does, I said. Daniel looked at Mark, then back at me. So what happens now? I don't know, I said. But not this. Not anymore. He left first. No big goodbye. No dramatic exit. Just walked out, letting the door creak behind him. Mark stayed. He looked at me, tears still fresh. Do you hate me? I don't know, I said honestly. I don't even know how to feel right now. We sat in silence. Leah spoke up finally. You both broke each other long before either of you cheated. That's the real tragedy. We nodded. In the days that followed, things moved fast. I filed for divorce officially. There was no fight over the house. Mark said he didn't want it. Too many ghosts. Rachel texted me once. She said she was sorry, that she didn't know the full truth. I didn't respond. I had nothing to say to her. Daniel tried to call a few times. I blocked his number. Leah offered me her guest room for as long as I needed. I started going to therapy. I journaled. I stopped blaming myself every second. I started to see who I really was again, someone who had ignored their own needs for too long just to keep a broken picture frame from falling off the wall. I wasn't blameless. I know that. I stepped outside my vows. I lied. I chose escape instead of confrontation. But I also know this: I was starving. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And I reached for the first hand that reached back. I regret the lies. But I don't regret waking up. One day, while walking near the lake, I saw a woman alone on a bench. She looked how I used to look, lost in thought, checking her phone, like she was waiting for someone who always showed up late. I wanted to tell her to run. But I didn't. Because some truths, we have to live through ourselves. I don't know what comes next. I'm 42, divorced, and unsure of everything. But I'm no longer hiding. And that, for the first time in a long time, feels like peace.